welcome back. This is episode 18 of Collapse Talk, and this is your host, Gabriel. I hope that y'all have been safe and sound and just living life and just doing what you can with all this madness, but we will highlight what has happened since the last episode, and quite a lot has happened. It's kind of a flashpoint, really. I do want to touch up on something that is not necessarily collapse related, but it was kind of just like a big shock. Like, I try not to be surprised and shocked by a lot of things these days, but this was genuinely like sad, which was the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I'm sure that was a shock for everybody. Like, yeah, it's just really sad to hear about, and unfortunate for his family. Hope that best wishes to his family. Really, it was those are I'm not necessarily the celebrity type of person. Like, I don't care about that. It's just that because it's all like vanity and it's all glamour. They don't add anything. But with Chadwick Boseman, you had that sense of he's actually adding something to society or to the art. He's actually like a figure, a role model. So, and I'm sure everybody I don't know. He was one of those figures that was a rising star. And then his life got cut short, unfortunately. That's just life. Colon cancer, that is something to, as men, we definitely have to be on top of that. That's one of the silent killers. So, yeah. I mean, I need to rewatch Black Panther now because that was definitely one of his better movies, Chadwick Boseman. Well, I mean, there's other films that he's done, but, that's like, he's T'Challa. He's, yeah, so that's why I wanted to make some words on that, just to, open up the show and just to, put into perspective everything that's going on, because it's just one thing after another, man. Like, wow. It's just one thing after another, and that was genuinely shocking and surprising, because, like, nobody knew except for his friends and family, which, that's something very private, and, of course, that's he was fighting for sure. I mean, he definitely had the healthcare available to him, but it just got the better of him. But yeah, like, that was when I saw that notice, I was kind of just like in silence, and I wanted to just savor the moment, like the piece before everybody started posting about it, just because everything is like so instantaneous. So, yeah, that was just one of those things. But another celebrity death in 2020, and just another footnote for this madness. But I just wanted to open up with that, because I'm sure that's something that's very fresh in everybody's mind, and because it's so out of the blue, so it's definitely a shock. But again, we can't let everything. So you can't let things surprise you. You just gotta process it and then move forward. And best wishes to the family and friends. And, of course, now people are talking about what they're going to do with the Black Panther franchise. And honestly, it's probably better to just retire the role. I don't know, because, like Boseman is T'Challa. Like, there's no denying that. The same way that Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark, Chadwick Boseman is T'Challa. So, there's that. So, just want to say that this isn't like a comic book movie kind of podcast, but it's definitely just something that I want to talk about. But moving onward, because we have this program where I talk about different segments of our lives and just the world right now. So I divided it up into the international segments, the domestic segment, and then the natural world. So, yeah. So what has happened? A lot has happened. And of course, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, so, of course, the United States, we're just having a shit show here, but the rest of the world is doing fine. They're managing it, it appears. Of course, the winter is going to roll around soon, so we'll see how they handle that. But it has been confirmed that there are reinfection cases. So, of course, people were talking about the possibility, you're going to have an immunity. Well, it appears now that you can get reinfected. And so, reading from MedPage today, quote, A 33-year-old man in Hong Kong may represent the first confirmed case of reinfection, researchers in Hong Kong said. The man was diagnosed with COVID-19 on March 26, hospitalized and recovered. He tested positive for SARS-CoV-2 again on August 15th. The whole genome sequencing of viral isolates from the 2 episodes indicated they were from different clades, reported Kwong Yoon, MD of the University of Hong Kong, and colleagues in a manuscript they said had been accepted for publication in the Clinical Infectious Diseases, but not yet published. So, and they've also said that there are other cases of reinfections that are not just in Hong Kong. There was a case in Europe of reinfection and also in the United States. And yeah, what they're saying is that it's possible that there is a new strain coming along. The mutation was going to occur eventually. So yeah, so that kind of just confirms the whole, I guess, the herd immunity theory, that it's not exactly up to par as they were hoping it to be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the fact that you can get reinfected again kind of shows that doesn't necessarily work. We're just going to have to wait till the vaccines come out. And even then, now they're saying the vaccines, like, it's not even going to be a one-off thing. Like, you might have to take multiple or... yeah, this is so weird now that we're just having all this mess and drama and... Yeah. But then again, having to make a vaccine for a disease like this, people are going to rush it, and it's going to, like I said, I'm not an anti-vax person, but I'm definitely concerned about the side effects now because they're definitely going to rush it. And now there also is a report coming out that the United States isn't going to help with the global vaccine effort because it's run by the WHO, and the WHO is in bed with the Chinese government, which is true. The WHO does have close ties with China right now. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, because at the same time I do want us to work on the international stage and to cooperate with our allies and neighbors and just to create a vaccine for this. But yeah, the WHO has been acting weirdly, especially considering the Chinese influence in the organization. But yeah, so reinfection of COVID confirmed. We're just going to have to see how this unfolds. I mean, right now the United States is at like 180,000 deaths. Let me double check on that. But yeah, we're just, it's still tallying up, and people are just, they just give it a pass. They've actually, okay, so the actual confirmed death count right now is 188,000. So, that's a lot of people, and of course, considering the total count tally of confirmed cases and then the recoveries, of course it's a small percentage, but 100,000 dead Americans is pretty severe. It's pretty bad. So, or almost 200,000. I mean, we're going to get to that point probably by Christmas, 300,000. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out because, yeah, this next quarter is going to be rough. And I'm seeing a lot of these Instagram posts of, the influencers, the September, October, November, there's going to be plentiful bounties and, things will turn out. Nah, it's not. It's not going to turn out. It's going to get worse. I don't know what else to tell you. So, yeah. So, there is that. So, we have that going for us. And they've actually released some report that showed that, among Republicans or the GOP, whomever, they have been pointing out that, these are acceptable losses, which I don't know what to say about that, especially considering that I've had close people get infected and almost get hospitalized, So if something happened to them and then somebody told me that was an acceptable loss, I don't know how I would hold back myself, because, like, how can you say that, And this is the pro-life party, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, we're just gonna have to deal with it, right? It's just a fact of life now, and there's death everywhere now. So you just gotta stay clean and stay, out of it. I will say, like, I did go to a party about a week ago, almost 2 weeks from now, and I was just like, I need social interaction. It wasn't like a crazy thing, it was just like maybe at least 12 people. But like if we were in, say, like California or something like that, that would be enough to get the police involved or something. I don't know. So it's a good thing I'm in Texas. But it was just nice to have an interaction and hang out with people. But then, the night drags on, and then people are, a little sauced up, and I'm definitely not. I'm not a party animal like that. But share a vape or something like that. I don't know. It was, but I definitely trusted them not to be stupid. So, again, those moments of just letting your guard down and trusting that the other person didn't, get themselves infected. But as the holiday season rolls around, I'm gonna have to cut back on that. Just keep interactions to family only. Yeah, but anyway, so there's that. We have that going for us, which is nice, and we're just gonna have to see what unfolds. So that's the COVID pandemic, global pandemic right now. And I wanted to just move on from there. So, I've talked about Brazil quite a bit on this show. Brazil's like it's on my collapse radar. So, in Brazil, they have their COVID outbreak, which is the worst in South America. And it's predominantly affecting indigenous communities in the Amazon. These are remote communities. They have their immune systems aren't as strengthened as, say, people in the cities. So, and just all these other indigenous rights issues. So it's all coming to a head now. Like it's all reaching a boiling point. And I made a point about this being like the Wild West, but like this is like, it's literally the same thing. Like, Plains Indians fighting, railroad workers, that sort of thing. So what's been released or what's occurring right now is a blockade of indigenous protesters from the Kayapo tribe. And they're blocking a major highway in Brazil, just trying to get, attention about the COVID response and just the fact that they're dying, and also the Amazon, destruction. But yes, so let me read here. So this is from France 24, and it's a pretty interesting photo. It's just these indigenous tribesmen with their headgear and their chief and all that. It's interesting. It's nice. It's like it's basically a Avatar or something like that. Not to patronize them, but it's yeah. So here's what's happening. So armed with spears, quote, armed with spears and bows, dozens of indigenous protesters in Brazil vowed Thursday to maintain a roadblock on a key highway until the authorities listen to their demands for helping fighting COVID-19 and deforestation. Members of the Kayapo ethnic group have been blocking Highway BR 163 through the Amazon since Monday outside the northern town of Novo Progresso. But they vowed that they would no longer lift their blockade periodically to let truckers through, as they had done for the past 2 days. We're going to stay right here until the government sends its representatives to talk with us, one protest leader said. End quote. So, yeah, so this is a blockade, and they want, people to take notice. Of course, this is a common thing now in South America of the indigenous groups fighting back and activating themselves. So, best of wishes to them, because they definitely need the help. And Bolsonaro doesn't care. I mean, he probably doesn't even think they're human. Like, that's how it's really messed up, so they don't care. They don't care. And again, with the deforestation and the forest fires, that's also unfolding, and that's going to continue to, progress as, the agricultural and the logging, deforestation, all that it continues. In fact, I saw this video of this farmer, I don't know who it was, but this Brazilian farmer just like walking through a field, and there's like a burning tower behind him, and then he's just saying some stuff. And yeah, there's that slash and burn tactic of just razing grounds and then repurposing it for grazing and all that. So that's happening there. Again, this is definitely a significant moment. Of course, nobody in the U.S. knows about this, but it's just something that I saw, and I want to at least bring it to light, because these stories of indigenous groups trying to take back their land or their rights, or just trying to survive, because this is it's a genocide, if you want to call it, because they're just being neglected. And it can only go so far, and they have to respond and do something, and then the government's like, oh, you see? So then, yeah. So there's that. But, best of luck to the Kayapo people. So hopefully they get something, because there have been court cases that they've won, so they've definitely know how to maneuver the courts and all that. But it doesn't, it's not to say that there isn't violence against them, or that they don't commit violence either. So it's really interesting, these tribal peoples. So there's that. So that's Brazil at the moment. But continuing onward, so we've talked about, recently in Lebanon, in Beirut, they had an explosion with the ammonium nitrate at the port, causing significant damage, killing hundreds, wounding thousands, already in a city that was not on the brink of collapse, but just like really struggling. And so this was kind of their breaking point. And so after, a series of protests and demonstrations, they have named a new prime minister. And so their new prime minister, Mustafa Adib, is a former ambassador to Germany, and he is, essentially trying to form a new government. And it's interesting, like in Lebanon, they have these rules about who can take the presidency, and it's based on the religion and like the different ethnic groups. I forget specifically like what religion has to be the president, but it's really interesting that one president is this ethnicity or this religion, and then the vice president, or I should say prime minister. And then, yeah, it's because, Lebanon is a very ethnically diverse area. Very ethnically diverse, very religiously diverse. I mean, it's, in the Middle East, it's probably one of the more progressive places. Not to say that there aren't fundamentalists and extremists there, but it's, you go to certain cities in Lebanon, and it's just like here. Of course, right now it's struggling, but they called it at one point the Paris of the Mediterranean, I believe. So, I mean, they were colonized by the French, but yeah, it's interesting what they're going through in Lebanon. But they have a new prime minister, and yeah, they're just trying to reform everything. And they've had government officials resign, and it's good to see that they were able to avoid bloodshed and violence. They had those demonstrations, but this is still very early on, because they put a new guy in power, and then you never know what's going to happen 2 years down the road. So it's just interesting to see that happening. So there's that. So, and actually I should say something about their government. So, quote, Adib's support came from a majority of parliament members. The country's sectarian-based power-sharing system requires that every prime minister must be Sunni Muslim. There we go. Adib's government is expected to resume talks with the International Monetary Fund for a $10 billion agreement, contingent on the government's reforms. The country's electricity and financial sectors have also been clouded by problems caused by arguments between the parliament's sectarian interest groups. End quote. Yeah, so there's that. So they're sorting things out. They're, dealing it the best that they can. Again, we just got to see what happens now. I'm just glad that they were able to have a peaceful transition of power. Well, peaceful, quote unquote. But it's better to just resign and than to stay in power and burn everything around you, right? Just take the easy way out. But then again, that's easier to say when you're not a brutal dictator, right? It's easier to step down when you're not, you don't brutalize your people. Because you look at the situation in Belarus, and this is an entirely different story, right? So in Belarus, the president, Lukashenko, who has a history of just fraudulent elections and abuse of power, corruption, all that. Now the Belarusian, the people, they're starting to rise up. I mean, there's some pretty intense videos. I saw one video of like these cops trying to, in an unmarked van, trying to arrest somebody in the street, and then a mob of people just swarmed the vehicle and started beating the cops up. So, I mean, this is where they're at now. And actually, I was reading somebody making a point that could have been a false flag operation where the cops were targeting somebody who was, an undercover agent, so that way they could provoke a response from the mob, and then they could send in their people. So that's another thing, and that's definitely, a tactic that they could use. But yeah, in Belarus, it's heating up. I don't know why it's not necessarily like being talked about as much, but it's starting to heat up. And as I've stated before, it's reminiscent of the revolution, uprising, civil war in Ukraine, particularly with the response of Russia, the intervention there. Yeah, so now, like, Russia is definitely, or Putin, I should say, he's stated that they have police on standby. Like, they will send forces in there. There will be an intervention if there's a civil war in Belarus. So there is that. And actually, like, Lukashenko made some claim like, oh, you gotta drag me out here, as a cold dead body or something like that, which is like, don't tempt these people because there's a lot of people that want to kill you. So yeah, it's like a Libya Gaddafi situation in Europe, which is not a good thing. We don't want to repeat that. Libya right now isn't Libya. It's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. So yeah, there is that. But yeah, Belarus is starting to heat up. But we have to monitor that situation there. And in fact, these Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, they have blacklisted Lukashenko and other high-ranking officials. So basically, they're not allowed in the country, and other EU countries are starting to like condemn Lukashenko, trying to isolate him. I should read this from Al Jazeera, quote, "The Baltic EU members announced their sanctions on Monday in a coordinated effort to support the protests in Belarus, which are entering a fourth week since the country's disputed presidential election on August 29th. Quote, "We are sending the message that we need to do more than just issue statements. We must also take concrete action," Lithuania's foreign minister Linas, I can't say that, told the AFP news agency, end quote. So, yeah, so there's that. So they're definitely trying to isolate Belarus, definitely trying to put pressure on them. So that is happening there. I'm just interested to see like what's going to unfold. I mean, we're going to have a Tiananmen Square event soon, because it's not out of the question, and Putin isn't going to do anything about it. Like, he's, so there's that. We just have to monitor the situation, and I'm sure there's a lot of different NATO assets in the area, monitoring it, making sure. Because I mean, I don't know what natural resources are in that area, but somehow Belarus is another target of NATO and EU. But it's mainly just to isolate Russia, and Russia isn't going to tolerate that. Like, I don't like Putin, but I definitely see that it's not the best idea to isolate a country like Russia, and they can't dominate the world, but they can cause a lot of damage. I don't think Putin is a communist, but he certainly is an authoritarian. So there is that. So I don't think he would reinstate the Soviet Union, but he's definitely going to try to, bring back those satellite states. The Baltic states and Poland and Finland. Definitely try to bring them back into that sphere of influence. So we'll have to see what happens there, right? But also speaking on Russia, a dissident activist, anti-corruption activist named Alexei Navalny has been poisoned. And he's an interesting figure because to be somebody in Russia, anti-corruption, dissident voice, that's a death sentence. And of course, as we saw now, he's been poisoned. He's had death threats. I'm sure this isn't the first time he's been poisoned. He's in a coma in Berlin at the moment, and they've also released that it was like a nerve agent. So, yeah, this is serious, and Russia isn't any stranger to espionage and spy actions. So, this is just another escalation, if you want to call it. Of course, this is another Russian, so it's not necessarily anything that other countries can get involved in. But yeah, it's just it's sad to see, that this keeps happening in a place like Russia, because I would like to visit Russia. I really would. I would like to go there. I don't think it'd be dangerous, but it's just that it's run down, and I've been to some pretty rundown places, so I don't know how I'd handle living in a place like Russia, So, I'm reading this from Financial Times, quote, Alexei Navalny's visit to Siberia last week went like most of his trips he has taken across the country to galvanize anger against President Vladimir Putin. Russia's most popular opposition leader posed for selfies with supporters, took a dip in the Tom River, and evaded a conspicuous tale of Russian secret services. On the flight back to Moscow, Mr. Navalny abruptly broke out in a sweat, became disoriented, and collapsed in the plane's bathroom, where he could be heard groaning in pain before he lost consciousness. A week later, he remains in a coma after being evacuated to Berlin, where doctors said test results suggested that he'd been poisoned by cholinesterase inhibitor, whose uses range from medicines to pesticides and nerve agents. End quote. Right. So, actually, let me continue. The attack on Mr. Navalny, at least the sixth such attempt against a Russian dissident in the past 5 years, has provoked international condemnation on the scale not seen since the poisoning of former double agent Sergei Skripal with the nerve agent Novichok in the UK in 2018. And yeah, they confirmed that Novichok was the agent that they used on Navalny. So, yeah, they poisoned him. And I mean, this isn't, they poisoned other agents and other defectors and other activists. I mean, not even poison. I remember some time ago, they just straight up shot a guy in the street. They don't care. And, it might not be Putin, but, the Russian mob basically controls the government, so that might be another thing also. All these Russian oligarchs and these billionaires, they kill people. There's no questioning that. Yeah. So, best of luck to him. Hopefully he can recover soon. And it's interesting because there is a movement against Putin in Russia. It's just the police, and they just break everything apart, so they don't even give him a chance to gain momentum, right? So there's that. So hopefully he recovers soon, and Putin's going to continue to deny having any role in it, but it's a message. It's a message for sure. So, moving onward, also talking about Russia and their espionage and just their different actions that they take. It's been shown that a French top military officer, had breached information to Russia and at a NATO base. So, yeah, they're just investigating as a senior military official for passing ultra-sensitive information, and it was in a NATO base in Italy. Quote, reading this from the French French Defense Minister, Florence Parly, quote, told French media on Sunday that a senior military officer was under investigation for serious security breaches. Quote, what I can confirm is that a senior officer is facing legal proceedings for a security breach, Parly told Europe 1 Radio. She made similar statements to French television network CNews and Les Echos newspaper. The lieutenant colonel was reportedly based at a NATO facility in Italy and was arrested while holidaying in his native France. He had reportedly passed on ultra-sensitive information to Russian intelligence services, end quote. So, yeah, they're not going to say what information it was, but yeah, it's happening. They got moles in NATO, and they're going to pass on information and, whatever they need to do. So that's just something that needs to be kept an eye on. And, again, we're in a Cold War. I mean, there was a bit of, peace and, kind of things kind of chilled out, but now we're back in the Cold War. So, yeah, this is just what's happening now. It's interesting to watch a Cold War now, especially with all the internet and stuff that we have now. So it's like, it's not even like, because back in the day, if you mentioned some Cold War conspiracy, people would just name you as a nut and throw you in an asylum. But now there's like, it's legit. Like, people are like, no, I believe it. So it's, like with Epstein and all that good news. I mean, the reason I don't really touch up on that, because I don't know, it's not necessarily collapse related, but it's certainly up there, right? And, anything that involves like children and sex trafficking, I kind of steer clear of that because I just get grossed out. But yeah, it's, all these sort of things that people were, that would gaslight you for, and now it's like, yes, like, okay, now it's for real. So there's that. But yes, so we have infiltration, top military officials in NATO, and, definitely could happen here in the United States. And there's definitely been reports of, officers and double agents with China for sure. So, like, it's not out of the question, but that just happened there, right? So, moving onward. In Berlin, in Germany, there was a incident that occurred on Monday, the 31st, and so there was an anti-government lockdown protest, and it was at the Reichstag, right? So the Reichstag in Berlin, and these far right people tried to storm the building. Like they tried to like go inside it, or they were just standing at the steps, and yeah, it was a pretty intense moment, and the police had to step everything, had to push people back. It was interesting. I saw a video where it was just a mob of people, and it was just 3 cops holding them back and with their batons. So, but of course they had a greater response. But ministers, these Berlin ministers are, trying to speak out about this, calling it shameful and such. And it's interesting because you're seeing like these far right people, and they have like Iron Cross flags, like very like Wehrmacht symbolism, because Nazi iconography is just like swastikas, like it's not allowed. Like you can't do Nazi salutes or anything. Like it's illegal to be a Nazi in Germany. So, but they still have like these Iron Cross symbolisms. I mean, it's obvious. Like, I shouldn't say obvious, but the parallels and you're basically in the same boat, right? But this scene of people trying to storm the Reichstag and being pushed back by police was a pretty intense scene that occurred. And Germany's no stranger to intense protests and riots, but it's usually from the far left. Like there's a lot of militant leftists in Germany. So seeing this from the right is interesting. I mean, it's unsettling. I don't know how, like, somehow Nazis just pop up. It's like, it is a virus. They just pop up and you just gotta stamp them out. It's fucking wild. But, I'm just reading this from The Guardian. Quote, Berlin's interior minister has expressed regret over a standoff outside the Reichstag building on Saturday during a rally against coronavirus restrictions. Speaking to a committee of the city's state interior ministry on Monday, Andreas Gesell said he was deeply regretful about the images from the protests which were seen around the world. Quote, these are shameful pictures which have a powerful effect, he said. Giselle came under fire at the committee because of the city's authorities' apparent lack of preparedness and for underplaying in advance of the demonstrations the role of the far right, including the NPD and AfD political parties, and their ability to rouse demonstrations to participate. About 38,000 people, including extremists, anti-vaxxers, and conspiracy theorists, took part in demonstrations, which were allowed to take place after an 11th hour decision by a judge overruled a police ban. End quote. So, yeah. So a whole mob of people were at the Reichstag protesting coronavirus restrictions. And, yeah, that just happened. It almost, it got pretty intense. And I guess the police were a bit unprepared for it. And, of course, this is an unruly mob. So it didn't escalate from there. But it was just a intense moment for everybody. But, yeah, so, the far right in Germany is something to keep an eye on, because they have quite a history together, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, they've even, noticed a trend of far-right cells infiltrating law enforcement and the military. And who knows what that is? What's the cause behind that, other than, these extremist cells growing and infiltrating, the same sense of like Hydra infiltrating all levels of our government and Captain America, quote, reading from the Financial Times, quote, when it comes to threats from the far right, left-wing German politician Martina Renner has developed a thick skin. She rattles off various kinds of threats that she's received over the years, detailed descriptions of her murder, sexual violence, or even graphic videos of assaults. But since April, the MP for the Die Linke Party has received 7 letters that were different. The sender, NSU 2.0, a reference to a neo-Nazi group from the 1990s called the National Socialist Underground, shared personal details the public would not know, and her situation is not unique. Last week, the Interior Ministry of the German state of Hesse confirmed such messages have been sent to some 27 people in recent months, most of them women, people of migrant heritage, or on the political left. At least 3 targets have been searched for in police databases before the threats were sent. Ms. Renner and others say details in the communications sent by email, fax, or text appear to require access to official records or perhaps surveillance. So these officials, these MPs, they got doxxed and people were sending them threats, and they know that the only way that information could have been released is because somebody went into their database. So either it was a hacker or a mole that received access. So, I mean, yeah, this is, it's escalating. And of course, you got people on the right targeting leftists and also just perceived undesirables, people of migrant heritage, right? So, yeah, this is something that they're going to have to deal with, and it's just something that is it's just something to keep an eye on. It is interesting, though, because Angela Merkel is still, the prime minister at the moment, and, they have to form new governments every once in a while, so it's very complicated. I don't really follow German politics as much. I just know that in the same sense that we have our political divisions here, it's kind of more so, because the stakes are much higher in Germany, So, yeah, that's something that they have to monitor and keep an eye on. But at the same time, it's not a place where they have freedom of speech, so it's, of course I don't like Nazis, but you still need freedom of speech, and, yeah, there's that. So that's Germany right now, and, it's just something to keep an eye on. And before I wrap up this international segment, I want to talk about like a little incident that occurred in Syria between U.S. troops and Russian troops. And so there was a bit of a skirmish that occurred, and that left 4 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, injured with like mild concussion symptoms. In fact, I saw a video, I think this is the same incident, where this Russian convoy was like playing chicken with the U.S. convoy, and like one of their helicopters was like hovering like mere inches from their MRAPs. So like, I don't know, it was kind of funny to watch because they were clearly fucking around, but like it's also like, these are 2 nuclear powers. Like, you mess something up and there you go, World War III. I mean, this isn't the first time that U.S. and Russian troops have had issues in Syria. In fact, U.S. troops have been under attack from Russian mercenaries. So, yeah, this is it's a pretty hot situation right now, And also, in the fact also is like, why are we in Syria? We were still in Syria. There's like 500 troops in there. Why? Oh, we're taking their oil. We're acquiring their oil. We're basically looting their natural resources. So we're, in a sense, the criminals in this situation. So, I mean, what are you going to do, right? At least Trump is being honest about it. Like, yeah, no, we're taking the oil. Like, it's not about terrorism. It's the oil. So, there's that. And then you got the Rojava situation. I haven't kept up with it as much as before, but, Turkey is moving in there and displacing the Kurds in that area. So, that is happening there. But I just want to continue with this, right? So, reading from Politico, quote, U.S. service members were injured after an altercation with Russian forces in northeast Syria on Tuesday, according to a draft military statement and a person familiar with the matter. 4 U.S. troops have been diagnosed with mild concussion-like symptoms after the incident involving Russian and coalition armored vehicles, according to the statement reviewed by Politico. A second U.S. source briefed on the matter confirmed that multiple U.S. troops were injured. End quote. Right. So they had a bit of a skirmish, and they, nobody died, but people got injured. But yeah, it's just like, why are we in Syria? And we're all over the world in that sense too. But it's just the oil. It really is. So, yeah. Again, Cold War stuff. Just really gotta monitor it, because I mean we're constantly getting intercepted by Russian forces. I mean, like, there's so many different videos of, and I think it happened like almost a week ago, of a U.S. jet flying, patrolling, and then a Russian jet coming like a couple feet between them, or like, trying to buzz them, right? So there's that. But yes, in Syria, that's just another moment for us to look out for. But the U.S. as a whole is in a bit of a tricky spot, and we're overextended, not just militarily, but, economically and resource-wise and all this. So, yeah, just diving into the domestic segment now that we're, which is a lot to unpack, especially with the last week or so. There's a lot to unpack on domestically. So I'm just going to have to take it a step at a time. So, where do I begin, right? Because it's no secret now that we're in a state of collapse and that of degradation, of civil war, civil conflict, unrest, and it's, having to observe this in the moment now, as I said constantly, is difficult. We just need hindsight. We need more time to process things, because I know, considering certain situations that occurred, could post something and not get the full context of it, but you've already posted it and now you've influenced people to think a certain way. And it's interesting because like these are people that don't listen to my podcast, so it's just like, listen to this and you'll get the full scope. But there's only so much that people can deal with. So where to begin, right? So I want to talk at least about just general collapse and just I'm very concerned about the coming months, especially as the winter rolls around and as people start to get hungry for real and it start to get cold. And so there's been reports about starvation and malnutrition on the rise in the country, and people are increasingly dependent on food pantries. I mean, I'm a student, so it's a bit more acceptable for me to go to pantries, but then you have lines, miles of lines where people have to feed their families because of the food that they get, and that's not gonna last. It's not gonna last. It's I don't know. There's only so much food that can get to people. I mean, okay, look, we have probably the most amount of food waste in the entire planet. I mean, it's just despicable the amount of food waste that we got, and the reason we just throw it away is because it's not profitable. I mean, people, they need to earn money, and if they can't make up that money, well then I got all this waste product, so I'm just going to toss it out. Why not just donate it to an organization? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, starvation is definitely going to be on the rise. Malnutrition is going to be on the rise. It's going to be really sad now because I might come across a child with the symptoms of malnutrition, with like the bloated stomach, the orange fringe hair. It's going to be bad. And also just like their growth and their cognitive abilities. I mean, it's going to have a generational effect, honestly. So, and not just that, because you have the malnutrition aspect and also starvation. Like crime is going to be on the rise, and it's going to be over really, really dumb things, but people are hungry and they're going to do what they need to do, right? Because, I'm working deliveries, and one of the reasons I bought a gun is because I'm going to be working with food, and if I go into the wrong area and somebody smells me carrying around McDonald's, like, it sounds implausible, but like people have been killed over less, really. So, and this is food, So I just don't trust people in that sense. You got to keep your head on the swivel, especially when they start going hungry. They get really desperate. It's one thing to like, because in this country we have people who commit crimes because they're forced to, right? Like there was an incident where this guy, he robbed a pharmacy because he had to get the medication for his daughter, and he was even saying straight up like, I don't want to do this, but my daughter's going to die if I don't get it. So that's one thing, and you're going to see that also. But that has more to do with our healthcare system and just I could go on about that, but that's preventable. It really is. It's preventable. It's another thing when people start robbing because they're hungry and like they can't think straight because it's just food. I need food, and they don't care. They just don't care, and I don't want to deal with that, right? And that's just a general sign of collapse and of our society. And another aspect, because there's crime that people take up, but there's also another line of work that is, that's always going to be in demand no matter what, which is sex work. And sex work, I mean, I'm not anti-sex work at all, but I am noticing a trend, right? I'm noticing that more and more women are selling themselves, selling their bodies for, money, which, hey, do what you need to do, right? It's just, because it's a very touchy subject to talk about sex work now. I don't know why. But my point is that, you know, when that's the only line of work that a woman feels that she can do, because I'm sure that there are a lot of women who don't want to be doing this, but they feel they have no other choice. That's usually a sign of collapsing society, right? You look at, you know, all these different areas that have collapsed, and like women will do all sorts of things just for food, not even money, for food. So, but of course, we live in a sexually liberal society. I mean, we got WAP that came out. So, I mean, that just shows you where we're at. I don't know. It's interesting to talk about sex because I don't really dive into that. But, you know, sexuality in collapse is something that I probably should examine, because there are some people who they have a hole to fill. Like well, not, oh God, not, I don't mean like that. Jesus. But they have, like, they're empty, right? Jeez. They're empty and they have to fill it. And it's just, they go to sex or they go to drugs or go to alcohol, right? You know, I've been around people that, you know, so like, I don't want to name names, but like, I was at the party I mentioned earlier, and it got kind of wild. I'm not gonna lie, like I almost felt like I had to like bug out of there because like it was gonna get weird. But it calmed down, and we're all talking, and like the conversations just naturally steered towards, like, you know, the type of porn that we watch. And I'll just say this much, like, I'm pretty sexually tame. I know that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. But I'm not judging anybody. It's just, we live in the age of the internet, so everything is at your fingertips. So, if you're a sex addict and info, you got to escalate it. You know, certain things that you watch aren't going to have the same effect, and you got to escalate it, you know, get that hit. You know, it's definitely a dopamine hit, right? So, yeah, you know, you got OnlyFans, you got, you know, Pornhub, all that shit. You know, again, I'm not knocking it, because if you like having sex and you can make money off of it, okay, fine. It's just that when that becomes a line of work that women feel that they have to take up because there's nothing available, that's when you start having a problem, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know. There's some people that, like, they take their sexuality and that's like the only aspect about them that's interesting. Like, oh, okay, you fuck. All right, cool. What else do you do? Like, I don't know. So, again, I wanted to talk about that a bit. You know, I don't want to dive too deep into that, but it's certainly something interesting to see. Again, as a heterosexual male, I'm not complaining. It's just an observation, really. So, I'll move on from there. But that's the U.S., right? In the U.S., you know, we have these factors that are highlighting a collapsing society. And already we have civil unrest in the streets and riots and such. And, you know, we had a flare-up of riots recently, which was in Kenosha, the small little town in Wisconsin. And so, you know, I'm sure most of you who are tuning into this have already listened to different analysis and different breakdowns of the situation. And it's hard for me to come out and try to be objective about this, because you're going to piss off somebody, right? Especially as a leftist looking at this situation. Like, I feel like we have jumped the gun on it, because now these details are coming out about Jacob Blake, being that he was wanted for he had a warrant for felony sexual assault. You know, all these different things about him, which, like, you know, the fact that he was resisting police and fighting them, and then he's walking to his car clearly to grab something, you know. So, I mean, as a cop, that is a situation that you don't want to be in, of course, but you have to respond somehow. And I do think that the shooting in the back was excessive. I do think that was excessive. But I mean, at the same time, like, if you're resisting police and you're walking away from them to grab something in your vehicle when you're wanted for a violent crime, sexual assault, what else are you going to do? What else is... Yeah, so unfortunately he got paralyzed, and after that, there's riots in the streets and people fighting, and I don't know, man. It's a messy situation. So you got people on the left defending Jacob Blake. I'll defend him in that I don't think he should have been shot like that, but you can't resist police. You can't walk away from them. Like, I don't know. Yeah, who knows? But that happened, right? And then, of course, we have social media, so people shared it before they got the full story. I mean, I shared it before I got the full story. But people rioted, and now you saw what happened, right? So businesses got burned down, a correctional office got burnt down, and we also had the Rittenhouse situation, the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, which I'm sure some people want to hear my input on that. So what do I think? I think that Rittenhouse was defending himself, but I don't think he should have been there. A 17-year-old kid with an AR-15, that's a recipe for disaster, as we clearly saw. I don't know what group he was with, but he should have stayed with them. Like, they clearly weren't organized, and I don't know what he was thinking, that he could just go out into the street like that, right? Again, I don't know the full story. I mean, there was another breakdown that apparently he was responding to a dumpster fire, and then the mob got angry at him for doing that, and then they started chasing him, and that's when the shooting started. So that's one thing that may have happened, and, again, we weren't there. We weren't there. And I'm hearing a lot of these folks, like, they're saying that he's a white supremacist. That, well, I don't know where they're getting that, because I don't see anything indicating that. I just think he was a trigger-happy kid who wanted to go out, he wanted to go to war. I don't know. So, anyway, again, I'm not doubting that he was trying to defend businesses and trying to do the right thing, but clearly, people were just ready for conflict. And he shot 2 people. He shot Rosenbaum. I'm forgetting the other 2. But he shot 3 people, killed 2. And what was shown is that he was running away. And then Rosenbaum, which was the first one he shot, was throwing stuff at him. Some were saying it's a Molotov cocktail. Others were saying it's a plastic bag. Okay. Look, here's what I'm saying I would do. Not that I would be out in the street like that. It's just like, the only way I would be out in the street in a riot situation is because I'm bugging out because my home isn't safe. And I wouldn't be in the street anyway. I'd try to be hiding in the bushes and stuff, but, everybody has a plan until they get punched, right? So, if I'm getting chased by somebody and they try to disarm me, I'm shooting. If I'm getting chased by a mob that says, get him, like, I'm not shooting into the mob, but anybody who tries to attack me, like, they wanted to take a chance, so, yeah. I mean, how else are you supposed to respond when somebody has you on the floor, beating you over the head with a skateboard, and then there's, like, hundreds of people around you, right? And then they try to grab your gun, right? Like, that's a really dumb move on their part. I like the way Angry Pepper, he has a good YouTube channel, I like him, New York Attitude. I like the way he's putting it. Everybody's an asshole. Everybody's an asshole in this situation. Rittenhouse is an asshole. Jacob Blake is an asshole. Rosenbaum, everybody else is an asshole. Like, they all should have stayed home, right? And yeah, it's just a bad situation. But this is what's happening. You got these extremists on both sides who want to go to war, who just want to revel in chaos and conflict, but they have no idea what they're getting into, and then they die. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to war and then you accept death, but it's another thing when you think it's just another party and then you get killed. And yeah, so yeah, just people acting a fool, really. But yes, and look, I'm saying that Rittenhouse shot in self-defense, but I don't like the kid at all. He should have stayed home. And I read somewhere that his mother took him, apparently. I don't think that's the case, but it's certainly given some of the photos I've seen with him where he's like holding the gun like it's Christmas, like I'm willing to bet that his family are willing to, they're not discouraging this type of behavior. And you're also seeing on the right, they're turning this kid into a hero. He's not a hero. He's not. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is why, because, I kind of teeter back and forth, and this is one of the reasons why the right doesn't appeal to me, because a situation like this occurs where, you got a punk in the street, and they twist it around and turn him into a hero when he's not a hero, And I'm willing to bet they wouldn't want their 17-year-old son in the street like that. So what makes you think, like, they don't realize the message that's being conveyed? When you're defending this kid, you're telling other kids it's okay to go out and, not necessarily act a fool, but it's okay to go out with a rifle as a 17-year-old. They don't realize, like, what can of worms they're opening up, because, like, these kids are acting a fool, and I'm very worried about them. When there's no rule of law, I'm very worried about them. Like, just now, actually, I received a notice where there was 2 robberies this morning. 2 robberies around my apartment. And, like, look, man, if a kid points a gun at me, he's already made a death sentence. I'm sorry. Like, he's already made those life choices. I mean, it's a bad situation. Of course, I never want to be involved in that. But, these aren't people who have any humanity. And, I'm talking about, these are 2 different things, right? Because I'm talking about, like, a street thug versus some high school teen. But, there's no real thought process. I'm 24 years old, so I'm 7 years older than this kid. So, yeah, at 17, if there was a riot going down in my neighborhood, I don't know. I mean, we didn't have any guns in my house, but I don't know if I would have stayed inside either, So, yeah, at 17, your brain is not fully developed. So, yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Because, they're making these points about, well, we send 18-year-olds overseas. I'm of the opinion that that's not right either. Like, I think combat troops should be at least 21 years old. Like, I don't know. So, there's that. It's so messed up. Seeing this, and then everybody is, pointing fingers, and, it's a he said, she said of partisanship, and it's a whole mess, because now I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe anymore. It's just like, so much information. Like, what's the point even? So, that's Kenosha. And yeah, in Kenosha, it's just interesting, because we've seen these riots in these big cities, and now it's occurring in this small, little, quiet town. Like, and I'm in a small, quiet town also. So, a small, quiet college town. So that has the potential to go south pretty quickly if something happens here. And I'm just like, I'm having to play in my head, like, what would I do? What would I do? What am I going to do? Because I don't have anybody out here who's willing to, arm up and partner up. It's messed up, having to do that, trying to find the right allies and friends. But yeah, I mean, now seeing this occur, it's only a matter of time before something happens here. because in Huntsville I've seen several demonstrations, but it's mainly like maybe like 20 people at most, so a small group of people. But it takes one shooting here for some pretty bad unrest to occur. Now, the good thing about this town that I'm in is that there are prisons like literally like 10 minutes from the town, like maximum security prisons. So there's a larger presence of law enforcement and National Guard here. So that at least I can rest easy on because there's a larger presence here. But shit, man. What's interesting also, well, I wouldn't say interesting, but what's happening also is that it's not only the locals that are doing this. Well, it's not all the locals in Kenosha, but it's mainly the extremists from both sides, like going to this town to cause a mess. So you got Antifa on the left coming here to burn down businesses and break windows and attack courthouses. And then you have Proud Boys, the far right, claiming to defend businesses. And they definitely are. Like, they're trying to defend businesses. But also just, like, driving around in trucks and, like, I don't know, confronting people and just creating a bigger mess. So it's just, yeah. And then us, the regular people are caught in the middle of it, and we just have to maneuver between it. Because, like, people are talking about civil war. I'm making the case already that we're already in it. Like, it's already here. It's just not at the political level yet, but it's here at the cultural level. And I don't know which side I would fight for. Not that I want to fight at all, but it's like it becomes a matter of survival. And like, I don't want to have to make the wrong choice and partner up with some bad people. But I have no other choice to be with them because it's a survival situation, right? Like, once the war starts, it's starting, and you got to live with the choices you make and the people you partner up with. And that's hard because I'm looking at the left, and I know I certainly don't feel like I can express myself fully. And hey, I'm very left wing. So, seeing these extremists and seeing how it would be difficult for me to express myself really shows the level that they're at. And I'll say this much, because I've been keeping my ear close to the ground right now. The left isn't going to win if they continue like this. They're just not. And it's sad. This is why it's so difficult to appeal to people, because we lose our minds and we start breaking shit, But at the same time, it's also the status quo that pushes us to that limit, and people are complacent, so they don't feel the need to do anything or act. And then we're in a situation now where there's an economic collapse and all these luxury stuff that we used to afford. Now we can't get it as before. That's going to really affect people. It's going to affect their patience, and it's not like people are self-sufficient. Like they're consumers, so they don't know how to produce anything. They don't know how to, weather the storm. They've never really faced any real adversity. So, yeah. So I mean, you're seeing these riots because people are in a pinch, and there you go. So there's that happening in Kenosha. It's also interesting now because this is now like the new epicenter. Minneapolis was before, and now Kenosha is the new epicenter. So Trump visited yesterday, I believe, and Biden is poised to visit on Thursday. Like, all these politicians are making, their runs in the area, trying to make their campaign speeches, and yeah, it's all photo ops and all that. I don't know, man. I really don't know. And it's funny too, like, Biden is like coming out saying like, "Oh, do I look like a radical socialist to you?" It's like, yeah, this is how you're going to appeal to young people. Definitely, shift more to the right, because that's what young people need to hear right now. So, I don't know, man. But Trump was saying that this was essentially an act of domestic terrorism. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all, because, like, again, the left loses its mind, and then we justify doing all these things because we think that's the right thing, and we're attacking the corporations. But then you realize, oh, these are mom and pop shops that can't afford to recover from that. These are black-owned businesses. You know, they just want to watch the world burn. That's what it is. You know, the whole fuck capitalism mentality. You know, and I agree with that, fuck capitalism, but I'm more on the corporate level. Like, fuck corporatism. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a business, you have every right to do that. Absolutely. So yeah, I was actually watching another like video where there was a militia guy walking in the street, patrolling essentially with his group, and they were essentially like, because the media isn't going to show you this video, but this guy who was out there, and he said he wanted to just protect civilian businesses. He was straight up telling them, don't fuck with the businesses, fuck with the government. So this is, you know, where they're at now, and I actually had to agree with him because, and he even went so far to say about the Jacob Blake shooting, like that was too much, you know, that wasn't good to see. But I mean, he just didn't want innocent people's houses and businesses to burn down, which, hey, Second Amendment, you know, do what you need to do. But it was interesting because a lot of these mainstream media outlets are portraying these militia guys as a white supremacist, and that's not the case. Because if they're a white supremacist, then you would see the Klan, you would see swastikas, you would see all that iconography. They'd be killing black people and minorities in the streets. That's, you know, yeah. I don't know, man. Media's full of shit. They are, you know. Yeah. You don't know what to believe anymore, and they don't give you the full story. But that is Kenosha at the moment. And, you know, there's other riots that had broken out, you know, over, you know, the last couple of weeks. So, Minneapolis had another riot that broke out in their downtown area. Yeah, but it was connected with the Kenosha stuff. And yeah, I mean, there was police patrolling and, you know, people trying to break into businesses. It's just interesting. I was watching like a Snap story. This lady was just sitting at the top of her building, and it was like one of those balcony areas at the top of the building. So it's kind of like a garden, and there's a bar and all that, and they're just having a good family time. And then suddenly they start hearing shots and police, and they're just like, and she's recording it, and like she's like, I'm stuck here, you know. So that happened there. And then also in Chicago, there was a looting incident that occurred a couple weeks back, which was pretty intense. It was a coordinated effort, and what occurred was that there was a shooting, a police-involved shooting, but then somebody put out a tweet or some post saying that they shot a teenage girl. People got riled up, and then the folks from the south side went to downtown and started looting and started breaking windows, started shooting at the police. Like, you know, again, Chicago is lawless. It's a post-apocalyptic, lawless area. Or I shouldn't say that, but there are areas where the police just do not go in there, right? So, yeah, I mean, it got so bad that they had to raise the bridges on the river. Like, that's how bad it got. And I was also reading also that these gang leaders and these gangs are organizing and forming a pact, and they've said basically that if a cop draws their weapon, that they're shooting. So the gangs are going to shoot at the cops, and the cops obviously are going to shoot at the gangs. So yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going on? I'm definitely worried about gang activity as society slowly recedes and rule of law goes down. Because again, there's all this talk about abolish the police, but they're not taking it to the next logical conclusion, which would be the power vacuum that forms from that, and the gangs stepping in. So there's that. Well, just gangs and tribes, really, that's what it is, you know. That's what people do. They form up, right? So there's that. So we had all those riots and civil unrest that occurred. And, you know, we also had the DNC and the RNC. And I'll be upfront, I didn't watch either of those because it's just too much cringe. I'm sorry. It's too much cringe. Especially with the Democrats. Like, you look at the numbers for their YouTube, it's pathetic. With the DNC views, oh my, it's so pathetic. I'm sure most people didn't even know the convention happened. And I don't know, there was like one thing where they did, like, they had an artist perform, and it was just weird. Like, it was just very strange. Like, it really feels like the Democrats aren't even trying. Like, they know they're gonna lose. And of course, I was reading also that, you know, Biden broke a record with donations. So, like, he's getting all these donations, but then you see the effort that's put behind it. And it's like, rental, you know, quality. Like, it's like you're running for the president, and like it's like half-assed. You know, it's half-assed campaigning. I don't know, but you know, I didn't watch either of those conventions because it's just not worth it. I was watching that clip with Guilfoyle, that lady, was just ranting, and then, you know, all these different people. They got the McCluskeys from Missouri, yeah. The couple, the gun couple. Interesting fact about them also, like, they had a warrant for their arrest and they had their guns seized. And I was reading also that one of the pistol that the wife was holding was actually inoperable. So, and they knew it, so they were just flashing a gun like that. But they knew they couldn't fire, and either the police or whichever, you know, whatever was in control of the evidence, they fixed the gun, so they tampered with evidence to make it operable, so that they can say that it was a deadly weapon. Which, you know, like, that's concerning. That really is concerning that they would do that. You know, I don't like them, the couple. You know, I certainly do think that they were trying to defend their property. I mean, it was a private community, so technically they're not wrong for what they did. But, you know, tampering with evidence is, you know, illegal. You can't do that. But it really shows how far whoever they are willing to go to get you, you know? Especially if you're a gun advocate or gun owner. Like, they'll try to get you. I mean, I'm concerned. Again, I'm concerned about a Biden-Kamala Harris ticket, because it's going to take one mass shooting for all these Democrats to come together and say, we need to ban AR-15s. Blah, blah. We need an assault weapons ban. Blah. Well, I'm not going to support it. That's why I'm not voting for them, because, I mean, I don't like the Republicans. I don't like Trump, so I'm not going to vote for him. But I don't like Biden, and I don't like the Democrats right now. I've been looking at Joe Jorgensen. You know, the Libertarian, that party, it's usually hit or miss. I guess I just gotta do more research on her, really. But at this point, like, I know she's not gonna win. I'm just voting for her to take away from both candidates. That's all I'm really doing. Really trying to sabotage. I was almost at a space where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll vote for Trump so that the left loses its mind, and then we're in the war. Because fuck it, right? You know, at least if society collapses, I won't have to owe student debt. Or hopefully not. Or I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a fucked up situation to be in. But I just know that whoever wins, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. You know, like, I got people like criticizing me for buying ammo, and I'm like, I got to do this now before it really goes out. So, I don't know, man. Having to get all this gear. I swear to God, man. I'm still really pissed off at that fucking kid who broke into my car. Because they took some really important shit that... God damn it, man. Like, he better hope I don't find him out in the street if there's a riot out here. Because, not that I would kill him, but it's just like... You took my shit, man. But yeah, so it's moving onward. With California, you know, of course, California is on our collapse radar. But something interesting that occurred where they had a court case where they were attempting to classify Uber and Lyft drivers as employees. And now Uber and Lyft is completely out of California now. Which they, you know, California, especially LA, they need Lyft and Uber. They definitely need that. So it's going to be interesting what's going to happen now. I mean, I don't know how their taxi cab services work. Certainly not on the level as New York. But it's going to be interesting now because, you know, California, LA, people like to party, and, you know, DUIs are going to be on the rise now, for sure. But it's interesting to see that the company just pulled out, you know, trying to, you know, classify, or the court's trying to classify their drivers as employees, which technically they are. But I can see also the argument where it's just a gig, you know, you're a gig worker. Although there are people that work full time doing that. Like, we're just at that stage where a gig job is a full-time job. You know, I'm, you know, working DoorDash and all these other stuff, and this is my only job. This is what I have now. I have been applying, but people aren't accepting, you know, whether they don't like my resume or, you know, what I have to offer, or they're just not in a position to take on new people. I don't know, right? It's just, yeah, it's every man for themselves, but you just got to make your own opportunities and such. But yeah, that was just something I wanted to touch up on. But again, you know, California is not a place to be right now. I don't know. It's going to get weird. Right. So moving onward. In the House, they are proposing, and I hope it goes through. Like, this would be, like, if this is accomplished in 2020, like, it would clear out everything. It really would. So they're voting to decriminalize, or the House is to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. And it's going to be up sometime this month. And, like, if somehow it gets to the Senate and somehow Trump doesn't veto it, like, that would probably be, like, like, we have all this bad shit unfolding. Like, the society's collapsing, but hey, marijuana's legal now. Awesome, great. I can, you know, it just depends on the state level. And Texas, they just need a, you know, we're the, you know, the free state, right? But we can't smoke pot. I don't know. It's fucked up. But if somehow they actually do it and decriminalize it on the federal level, like, you know, it would make a stronger case for statewide legalization. The whole issue, though, can it be recreational, or do you have to get... I feel like in Texas, they're going to make it, like, super, like, bureaucratic and regulated, which is, like, this is what I mean about the hypocrisy of Texas, you know, because we don't like regulations, but, you know, with this, blah, 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 yeah, so, who knows? When it comes to the environment, fuck regulations, but when it comes to, you know, drugs and, you know, your personal life, they'll regulate the shit out of that. So, that is something that I hope pulls through. We're just gonna have to see. But, you know, rather have it, you know, later than never, right? So, yeah. Better late than never. That's what I don't know why I kind of took a moment to say that. Yeah. So there's that to look forward to. and hopefully it comes through, but we'll just have to see. So there is that. So I wanted to talk about also, it's domestic related, but it's also like it has to do with a video game. I like video games, and they're underrated because it's just perceived like a shoot 'em up or whatever. But I definitely think of video game as like the most immersive form of art. I mean, it is an art, right? So specifically with Call of Duty Cold War, and Call of Duty isn't usually like at the forefront of like political and cultural discourse, because it's just like the shoot 'em up Modern Warfare. I mean, there's that, people play it for fun. It's mainly the multiplayer aspect that people focus on. But now, with this new game that's coming out, or Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, it's definitely far more controversial, and it's also more contemporary. It's definitely a observation of our period where we're in right now. We're in the middle of a Cold War essentially, but it's just looking back at what we've done in the past. And yeah, I mean, the left is going crazy about it, because they're saying, well, oh, you're going to commit war crimes and all that. They're pretending as though Black Ops has never been critical of the U.S. government, because, like, if you play the first game, it's very critical of the U.S. government, very critical. I mean, of course, this one hasn't come out yet, so, we'll see what happens there, but, yeah. I will say this, when I was watching the trailer, and I saw Ronald Reagan come out, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, are you serious right now? But not in like an angry way, but I was just like, what? I don't know, man. There's something about Reagan. Like, I don't like his domestic policies, but, when you look at, just the demeanor, like, that's like the old type of men where, like, you just get shit done, Just like, yeah. But anyway, so that's coming out, and we'll just have to see. I feel like it's going to be more controversial as it, rolls on. I mean, it's going to come out in November. And, yeah, all these good games are coming out in November, and it's obviously there's going to be a war in November. Like, come on, man. I mean, it'll be easier for me to stay inside now, try to avoid gunshots and all that, but come on, man. Like, why all these good games when the war starts? But, yeah. So that's there. That's what's happening there. And also, like, there was, because they're trying to be like, oh, know your history, and, we're going to defeat communism. But then one of their teaser trailers had, like, a split-second image of Tiananmen Square. Honestly, I didn't even know it was Tiananmen Square until people said it was, but, the Chinese government was like, oh, we need you to censor that, or, they got upset about it, which is like, again, that really shows you how fragile they are, how fragile their egos are, all that. So, Call of Duty Cold War is, going to be, it's going to be a new release in this November, and we'll just see what happens there. Yeah. I wanted to continue onward, but I wanted to circle back because I wanted to mention something about Portland. I forgot to mention about Portland. So, in Portland, just, dialing back with all the riots and civil unrest. In Portland, they're nearing, like, 100 days of unrest. So, like, the city's a war zone. Like, there's just no way to frame it. It's a war zone, And recently, there was a demonstration at a courthouse, and then they had, like, this shield wall, like, mace fight, where they're just spraying each other and beating each other with clubs and sticks. I mean, like, these wannabe Romans, it's just, I don't know what they're thinking, but these are people that like conflict and fighting. Some messed up shit. Like, I was watching, like, there was a close-up on this guy's shield, and there were spikes in it. I mean, like, these people are engaging in medieval conflict. They just haven't brought out the swords yet, but again, imagine that. Imagine if, instead of gunfights, people fighting the streets with swords and spears and bows and arrows because using gunfire is too much, is too destructive. But medieval combat is something else. I mean, that could happen. That's what we just saw, and I don't know, man. Like gangs of New York style, just like, just fighting with all that. But that's only going to escalate from there. Somebody's going to bring a gun, and yeah. So it's a recipe for disaster. So there was that happening with the fights and the shields, and then there was another incident where there was a Trump caravan that went through the city and tried to parade around the city. Look, because there are people that are trying to defend, or they are defending this, saying like, oh, they have a right to drive around and blah, which they do. But look, these people knew exactly what was going to happen. They knew that if they were going to go into Portland with all the Trump stuff, that Antifa was going to respond. And that's what we saw. And look, even Antifa was doing stupid shit. Like, they're standing in front of this truck, like, like trying to push it back. Like, oh, this guy won't run me over. And this 2,000-pound gas guzzling, like, black smoke, just machine of steel. This Ford F-150 is like the guy is like not even like, he's tapping the pedal. And yeah, it's just like, I don't know what these people are thinking, that they can just step in front of a car and not have somebody run you over or shoot at you, like, especially a mob, And then these people were out in the street, the Trump supporters, the caravan, they had paintballs, they had mace, they had slingshots, all these other, they were doing drive-bys essentially. And yeah, I mean, it was just mayhem. Like, again, like I said, Portland's a war zone. I would get out of there if you're living there. So that happened. And then we also had a shooting that occurred that killed Aaron Danielson. And what occurred essentially was he got separated from the group somehow. And then I guess somebody ran up to him. There's a video of it where they're like, that get him, or that somebody ran up to him. Aaron raised his pepper spray to deal with the threat, and the guy shot him in the chest and he died. So yeah, this is just another incident. People are pointing like, you see, this could have been Kyle if he didn't shoot it back. So you're going to see now the arming up and the escalation. I mean, look, like I said, the war is already here. It's already here. So, it's just not the Democrats and Republicans fighting each other yet. It's not the police and the military fighting each other yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. It's happening in the streets. Honestly, these leaders would much rather have us kill each other than go after them. As long as they're in their position, living high and mighty, they don't care how many of us are dying. They don't care. But, that's just the world we live in, right? We live in very much a neo-feudal society now, where the ruling class are in charge, and us peasants are gonna pick up the scraps and just fight for survival. But yeah, so that happened in Portland. It's tying in with general civil unrest, and yeah, this is only going to get worse. Like, that's why, like, I need to get some body armor. Like, I feel like I need to get a bulletproof vest, really. And I'm trying to save up for that, but man, it's really messed up having to think about the stuff that I need, and then just realizing, and then also I gotta get in shape too. I really got to work out and lose weight. My thinking was like, oh, I'll kind of bulk up a bit, so that way when the food shortage really hits, I can kind of like a bear, live off my fat reserves for I don't know how long. But there's nutrition and other stuff that I have to watch out for. But yeah, it's really, I can't stay in this, I can't be this fat forever, because people are going to start thinning out. And if I'm still like this, they're going to realize I have ample food. So Yeah, I gotta look the part. But there's that. So, before I wrap up with the domestic segment, I wanted to touch up on an anniversary that's coming up. And it's not a happy one. It's the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And it's going to be an interesting perspective moment. Because who would have thought that 19 years after those attacks that we would be on the verge of civil war? Right? I mean, we're already in it, basically. Like who could have predicted that? Now, of course, the intention of those attacks from Osama bin Laden was to set in motion the collapse. They were attempting to create a economic, crisis of some kind, attacking the World Trade Center. It's just interesting to see that ripple effect. Because, of course, Osama bin Laden's dead. They did the attack and they set in motion the war on terror and they lost. I mean, they're still terrorists, but the Al-Qaeda, Taliban, they're practically defeated almost. And, imagine them now, looking at our situation. And it's just yes, it's all coming together. Everything that we've planned, everything we set in motion, a lot of different places are looking at our situation and kind of just rubbing their hands together, yes, scheming. But, and there was an onion piece too, where it's FBI uncovers new Al-Qaeda plot just to watch and sit back and watch America collapse. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. Who knows what type of... I feel like something might happen, but who knows, right? Who knows? So, that's the anniversary of 9/11 there. But that's just our domestic situation that is kind of, it was at a flashpoint. It got really hot. Now it's stagnated a bit. But I feel like once the weekend rolls around again, something else is going to happen and new riots break out. And again, I'm just hoping that nothing happens here, because I don't trust anybody out here, and I definitely don't want to be bugging out in a rural area like this. But it's certainly better than having to bug out in Houston. So, yeah. But there's that going for us. So I'll wrap up the domestic segment there. Moving on to the natural world, natural segment. We've had a lot unfold, actually. Particularly with hurricanes and storms and such. But I wanted to touch up on another environmental disaster that's occurring, and it's an oil spill in the Mauritius Islands. And I mean, this is Exxon Valdez level of, tragedy. It's so essentially this Japanese freighter ran aground off this island in the Indian Ocean and started releasing oil, about 1,000 tons of oil into the sea, and it grounded into a coral reef. It was in the lagoon area. So reading this from the New York Times, the captain of the ship that ran aground in Mauritius and spilled about 1,000 tons of oil into the Indian Ocean has been arrested, his lawyer said on Tuesday. The captain, Sunil Kumar Nadeshwar, was arraigned in a district court in the country's capital, Port Louis, on the charge of endangering the safe navigation of a vessel, an offense under Mauritanian maritime laws. Mr. Nandeshwar, an Indian national, was arrested alongside the chief officer of the ship, Tilak Ratna Subada, a Sri Lankan. The two were taken to police custody and will appear again in court on August 25th. Ilshad Mansoor, Mr. Nadeshwar's, it's different names, lawyer said in a phone interview. The island nation of about 1.3 million people is still grappling with how to protect its world-renowned coral reefs and crystal crystal clear lagoons after the spill. So, yeah, this is a disaster. Especially in an area with pristine waters and ecosystem. This is going to poison their fish and all that good stuff. And already dolphins are dying on the beach, and it's, hey, I mean, our oceans are going to turn into this vat of acid and just waste because we don't give a shit and we keep making this mess. I mean, and it's interesting too, the ship actually split in two. I'm guessing the tide waters had an effect on it and it split in two, so it just created worse spillage from the oil. But that's something that they're having to deal with, and this is another reason why fossil fuels need to be phased out. I mean, I know it's a radical position, but it's a radical position to phase out fossil fuels, but in order to preserve our ecosystems, in order to slow down, or I wouldn't say slow down, just mitigate the catastrophe of climate change, we have to. We have to. And that's not something that people want to hear, but we have to. And, you can talk about a Green New Deal, and that's, people don't like to hear it, but I mean, we're already in this mess because we've waited so long, and now we have to take drastic actions because people were dragging their heels. If we had done something maybe 50 years ago, I mean, we still would experience climate change, but it wouldn't be as severe as what we're seeing right now, which is apocalyptic, second Venus level, right? I mean, yeah, anyway, I'm not an expert in that field at all, but yeah, this oil spill is just another incident that occurred. I mean, there's so many different contaminations and pollution, and you can't count them all. But this is in an island like this, in an area that's pristine and paradise. I mean, something like this happening is going to set them back really hard. So there's that. But we got the oil spill. They're trying to clean it up. They're going to prosecute the captains, officers there. In fact, the company, the island Mauritius is demanding reparations from the Japanese government over this. So it's it's going to be an international focal point. But of course, our media doesn't talk about it at all. So there's that. But yeah, so moving onward more towards our area, we've had pretty, naturally, pretty intense week or so. So we had those double hurricanes that were in the Gulf. And it was really the first time that two hurricanes were in the Gulf at the same time. Of course, we had Marco. It was a storm, and it didn't make landfall as bad as people were anticipating it. Did have some rain, but Laura came through, and the area that I was in was under a tropical storm watch, but not that far away from us in Beaumont and Orange, Texas. They got basically a direct hit from the storm, and I don't know why. A part of me was like fuck it, let's get a direct hit. I don't know why. Because I was like, okay, it's going to be a little bit dangerous now, so let's see what happens. But I'm glad they didn't hit us. I mean, mainly for the rain. Mainly for the rain because it's been getting really hot and dry out here. So I wanted some rain. I didn't want the damage, but it's a sign of relief that it didn't hit us directly. We have the Houston area. There's millions of people. I mean, imagine Hurricane Harvey situation, but with Category 4 winds, right? I mean, with Harvey, it was just stagnating. It rained for a week straight. I mean, that was apocalyptic. I've never seen anything like that, and it's going to be more common. But my thing was just oh, we could use some rain, and who knows, maybe we'll lose some power, and we'll have some real stakes. I don't know. Like, I had my water, I had my food, so I was chilling. I even bought firewood so I could like have a little campfire. So yeah, but that hit in Louisiana, which it was pretty intense, especially on the coastline. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think they're gonna recover from that. Like, this is really gonna be the first instance of communities being wiped out because of sea level rise and storm surge. Because you look at some of these images, and there's just no way it's gonna recover. It's not gonna recover. And people are talking about, oh, it's gonna take months and years, but like these coastal regions, like, people gotta pack it up. They just gotta pack it up. I'm sorry, but of course they don't want to hear that, so that's just gonna exacerbate the situation. So that happened there, and like areas like Lake Charles got a direct hit, and they got wiped out almost. Like, it's insane. I was watching one of those storm chaser videos, and these guys were like standing in the middle of like this parking garage, and then the power goes out, and it's just like you hear the wind just like, and then you see all these like radio towers being knocked down, cell towers, like it was intense watching that footage. And it was funny too. I was like, because what I like to do whenever there's like some massive event occurring, I like to go on Snap Map and like see what people are posting on Snapchat. And I saw this post where, like, literally like an hour before landfall, this guy was on the coast. Like, I really hope that he's fine, whoever made that post, but I was just like, rest in peace. Because they were saying 20-foot storm surge. Like, how I mean, of course they didn't get to that level, but when you hear a 20-foot plus storm surge, what in your mind makes you think, yeah, all right, I'll weather this? Like, I don't know, man. So, I mean, that just happened there, and these communities have been wiped out, and it's been practically a week since, so they got National Guard down there, relief efforts, trying to restore electricity, running water, irrigation, all that, but, hopefully they'll, weather that. But we're going to have to see, because there are more storms forming in the Atlantic. They got Omar and Nana right now, but they're not going to hit the U.S., but we're not out of the woods, because there's definitely more. I mean, we're not out of our peak yet. We've gone through our list so quickly that now they're going to have to use the Greek alphabet for different storms. I mean, that's where we're at right now, which I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, and that's only going to continue, really. So there's that. But yeah, I was wanting to get not necessarily a direct hit, but just rain. That's what I was looking for. I just wanted some rain because it's getting really hot out here, and we actually have like a burn ban in the county, and that's something that I also had to anticipate for. Like, how am I gonna bug out of here if there's a wildfire? Like, if there's a wildfire that sweeps through the area, which can happen, how am I gonna deal with that? And I was actually even watching like the different radars, and there were some fires starting to brew up in the state. And it's crazy too, because you look at the West Coast and it's just orange all over the place. Like, yeah, the western states are getting burned to the ground essentially. And we were having a bit of a heat wave come through here, and we had some fires. Now, of course, we actually had a bit of rain like last night, so hopefully that did what it could. But yeah, man, you just gotta. There's so much that you have there's so much that you have to anticipate for. At the very least, there aren't like earthquakes out here, or I don't think. Like, there'll be moments where like I feel like the building is shaking, so I'm like, is that a tremor? Like, what? But there's no like major fault lines, not that I know of. But who knows? But yeah, fires, heat waves here in Texas that we got to watch out for. But also fires in California. Those fires have been brewing, and it's messed up because like one of their major sources of manpower is the prison population, those prison firefighters, which is basically slave labor. That's what it was, really, what it is. But now with COVID, they can't use them because they'll risk infection and such. And all these other different cities, they're not going to send their firefighters because they have CAL FIRE, which is just their state fire department. All these different cities are not really lending a hand because they can't risk losing those firefighters to infections. So this, I mean, like some crazy like report was released from Gavin Newsom where like they looked at the fires that burned and it was like a couple 1,000 acres or some crazy, or it wasn't necessarily like the difference but just the amount of time, because like he was talking about the amount of acres that were burned over a series of months last year compared to this year where it was millions of acres in a matter of weeks. So I mean, it's accelerating, it's exponential. I mean, I can't imagine living in an area where it's just combustible. And I mean, the same way with Australia, where it was getting to the point where like the sky was turning blood red, and people have to wear oxygen masks and all that, like because the air quality is so bad. Imagine you can't go outside for a breath of fresh air because it's unhealthy. So you have to stay inside, So yeah. So fires in California and along the East Coast. And again, we got fires all over the place, like I said, in the Amazon. I believe there's also wildfires in Africa. And, it's going to be a common theme as the heat intensifies. You're going to see more fires. And that's going to be a feedback loop for climate change. Or what could happen is the amount of soot and smoke could blot out the sun and create like a mini ice age. So that's another theory that could happen. Who knows? But yeah, so we got fires there, intense heat. In fact, we had so much intense heat that Death Valley broke the heat record. So it was the hottest place on the planet. And I mean, it naturally is the hottest place, but it just broke its record. I think that was set in like the 30s. I mean, they call it Death Valley for a reason. There's no life there, really. So, yeah, that happened there. So, with that being said, there was more. I mean, this is a bit of a quickie, or it's just a normal length episode, really. I just wanted to talk and just update y'all, and also just release something because this show has reached a year. It's a year old now, which I'm glad that I've reached this point. Honestly, like there were moments where I was just wanting to give it up, but this is all I got, really. Just talking, and I've been getting positive reception. Of course people are critical of it, but I try to like gauge between, okay, is this constructive or are they shit posting? So I gotta be able to gauge that. And like I said, I like this stage where I'm like anonymous and people don't really know or care about what I have to say. So, it's nice. It's been nice. This has been something that I can work on and, trying to get my degree in college. But who knows? I mean, something could go down and at least I can fall back on this. But then I would have to make that full time and all that goodness that comes with it. But yeah, I mean, like there's been 2 reviews actually so far on my iTunes page. So, and both of them being 5-star have said that I'm unbiased, which I don't think I am. I think I'm very biased, but it's nice to see that. And as a journalist, I'm trying to push myself to be more objective and not impartial, because I do have a stance. Like I'm gonna tell you where I'm at, where I think. So I'm really more like a commentator, but I definitely want anybody who's listening to this to do their own research, and please feel free to reach out to me, really, because I definitely need to engage more. I'm kind of I'm shy, and just dealing with people on the internet is another monster. But especially trying to be a podcaster, political commentator, or whatever. But yeah, so I just wanted to say those words. Really, yeah, people are liking what I have to say, and that's encouraging. And I just gotta continue to build up this little project of mine, and hopefully one day turn into something. I don't know. I'm not a business type of person, but in order to make this successful, you got to get into that stage. But it's just, honestly, that seems more like a headache, but who knows. But yeah, just wanted to say that. I mean, whatever happens is going to happen. At this rate, make sure you got your supplies. If you feel like you need it, get a gun, get some ammo, or have some means to protect yourself. Because, I mean, like I said, I just read a report where there was a robbery, like right outside my apartment. And not even like at night, like at 7:50. Like right as the sun was coming out, where people are going to class. Like, like this is the reason why I'm strapped, So, definitely be mindful, stay aware, definitely, take care of your mental health, don't, shut yourself in, but, just take care of your business and hustle. And that's all I really got to say. But definitely, I got my Patreon, if you feel that this is worth the donation, definitely put it there. I'm trying to formulate extra content that I can release. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. Either a game walkthrough or, again, I'm trying to talk like this, but it's just mainly brainstorming. But yes, if I were to get that extra content, I would release it on Patreon exclusively, then over time release it publicly. But, once I get to that stage, then I'll push more on the Patreon stuff. And, again, I recognize that people are struggling financially, so this is just, this is just for me. Or, I mean, I gotta support myself somehow, right? But, there's that. But I wanted to, just think about other stuff that I can work on. So Patreon, Collapse Talk. I also have Twitter, @CollapseTalkPod, which I need to work on some more, post more, be more active there. And also my email, which you can contact personally or collapsetalkpod@outlook.com. So you can email me, or, if you think I'm full of shit, we'll say what you need to say there. But, be constructive, put some points so I can actually research. But yeah, so that's all my contacts, and thank you for tuning in. I love y'all. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay alive, and thank you for tuning in.
Pick up your feet and let's go